So this is the progress report that everyone wants. How are all the 49ers rookies looking about a month after the 2025 NFL draft? And our Fred Warner already has a very deep initial scouting report on behind the scenes personality of Nick Martin, whom the 49ers drafted out of Oklahoma State to be the successor for Dre Greenlaw.
Yeah, I've loved everything that Nick's been about since he's arrived. I mean, heard the whole story about how he said he had my jersey before coming on the team, and then with some of those situations, guys don't want to seem like they're, you know, the whole too cool thing. I don't know what it is. Like, you just don't want an older player to think that they're not like, they're just like little bro or something. But he hasn't. He's come in and he's asked me every single question known to man of like, Fred, like, how are you doing this? Like, what are you doing after practice? What are you doing after the lift? And wanting to be a part of those things and not being afraid to ask those questions, right? So, I mean, I've seen the athletic ability flash already on the field in the way that he closes space really quickly, and he already has the great mindset of wanting to learn. So, I'm really happy with where he's at.
So many people ignore that part of the battle, which is so important. How is a particular rookie going to treat the new environment, and how is he going to absorb information that's available to him when he does enter an NFL building? And that's more important with the 49ers than probably any other team, because they have more established superstars than essentially any other team in the NFL. So they have built their entire foundation around the A-list guys, right? We can even go back to the 49ers roster, because I think that this illustrates how the 49ers want these rookies to integrate more than anything. Everybody shaded in yellow is an A-list foundational pillar. Notice that every single position room has at least one shaded in yellow. Brock Purdy at QB, obviously McCaffrey and Juszczyk in the backfield, Kittle, Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, and you heard from Fred Warner. So the 49ers, especially defensively, as we zoom in on this half of the ball, you see so much shaded in green here. Those are rookies. They trusted their ability to absorb all these young players because they knew that the foundational pillars would impart knowledge and give them good structural support to develop at the NFL level. So in the case of Nick Martin out of Oklahoma State, it's Fred Warner who is the tutor. Fred Warner is the guy who has to impart that knowledge. And the fact that Nick Martin has not been afraid to ask questions, and we hadn't heard it from that perspective before. Fred Warner said that a lot of guys, they act too cool for school when they get to the NFL level. They were the big man on campus in college. Nick Martin had like 140 plus tackles the year before he got hurt at Oklahoma State. So they were the big man on campus. Now, of course, you're not the big man on campus. And sometimes it could be a little bit of a shot to the ego to start fanboying over some of your teammates. I mean, Nick Martin owned a Fred Warner jersey before he was even drafted by the 49ers, because Fred Warner's an icon for aspiring linebackers. The guy's going to be a future Hall of Famer. How much better do we think that Fred Warner made Dre Greenlaw? And I'm not acting like it's not mutual. I think Dre Greenlaw made Fred better as well. But this is how teams and healthy organizations should work. You should have the truly established player imparting knowledge and helping make the younger player better. And Dre was only a year behind Fred Warner, but I think that Fred paving the way from 2018 onward, third-round pick out of BYU, was so important for Dre Greenlaw. And now when the 49ers drafted Nick Martin, they invoked a lot of Dre Greenlaw comparisons. So Nick, yes, he is flying around to the football. I was impressed with his closing speed at the practice that we saw on Thursday. As you can see, this is what we expected from him from an athleticism standpoint. Speed, great. Explosion, excellent. 160, 10-yard split. The explosion down here, vertical jump and broad jump, 38 inches and 10 feet, 3 inches respectively, also really good. The short shuttle time, which is indicative of some explosion in short areas, excellent for Nick Martin as well. Size is the one concern. But one thing that the 49ers love is that his arms are about as long as Dre Greenlaw's, 31.75 inches. At this point, though, I will emphasize that mentality trumps a lot. Like right now, the 49ers are working through the initial I don't want to call it a boot camp, even though they had the Navy SEALs there over the course of April for 4 days, but they're working through the initial introduction for these rookies, and these guys have to get acclimated to the NFL level, and everything is different at this level, much more different than the casual fan that watches Saturdays college football and then Sundays the NFL will ever realize. So when you hear Fred Warner talking about Nick Martin being a sponge like that, it is a big arrow up for the linebacker. How about the 49ers 3 defensive linemen whom they added? 3 defensive linemen with in the first 5 picks of the draft, all defensive players. And, I have a little bit of a note about the Bryce Huff trade that I can't wait to share with everybody. But first, we do have to look at the rookie defensive linemen. This is how they actually look at practice. First, CJ West. Look at that frame on CJ West. Does that remind you of a buffed up DJ Jones? I mean, more chiseled arms than DJ Jones. Alfred Collins has not practiced yet. He's coming back from a pre-existing injury. It's a calf, but he's starting to move a little bit more. This was from rookie minicamp where he was just standing there. The other day, he was actually moving on the side field. So he's making progress. And here is Mikel Williams, the 49ers first-round draft pick. Now, Mikel is long. And so is Alfred Collins. I mean, I talk about wingspans. Alfred Collins is over 7 feet. Mikel Williams has a wingspan of nearly that, and he's not as tall of a body. Arm length, I think, is the one thing that has stood out to me most about both of those 2 linemen. CJ West, obviously, not the same type of arm length. He is more of a stout player. But Mikel Williams and Alfred Collins are both going to come at this from the height defensive lineman perspective. So I'm zooming in on the defensive line because I've got some Bryce Huff trade intel here. Bryce Huff was the NFL pressure rate leader with 10 sacks a couple seasons ago in 2023 under Robert Saleh. Well, how does that do with the rookies? Well, Huff is 27, so he's not a young player anymore, but I think he still could have some physical prime years in them. But why don't we invoke some 49ers history here? They used their first 5 picks of the 2025 draft on defensive players. This is the first time since 1981 that the 49ers used their first 5 picks on defensive players. In 1981, one of those picks was a future Hall of Famer, Ronnie Lott. But it's what the 49ers did after that 1981 NFL draft that I think is particularly notable now. They traded for an edge rusher, a defensive end, a future Hall of Famer in Fred Dean. Anybody who knows that 1981 49ers team, I think people who casually know that team will talk about Joe Montana, Dwight Clark, the catch, and the 49ers' first Super Bowl. But it was the emergence of that defense fueled by the defense-heavy 1981 draft that was just as important to the 49ers winning their franchise's first Super Bowl. And it wasn't only about the rookies. It was about the addition that they needed from their pass rush, and they got it midstream. They got it before they played the Dallas Cowboys in the regular season through a trade with the San Diego Chargers. Fred Dean came to the 49ers. The rest was history. He'd be with them for their first 2 Super Bowls, 1981 and 1984. Now, nobody's saying that Bryce Huff has Fred Dean's resume. But Bryce Huff does have an elite season of pass rushing under his belt, and he did hit a very pronounced need that the 49ers rookies probably will not be able to fill in 2025. And here's why. Mikel Williams wasn't drafted to be a pass rushing specialist. Alfred Collins wasn't drafted to be a pass rushing specialist. Neither was CJ West. The 49ers, and I explained this all in great detail in a video that came out this morning where I talk about the Bryce Huff trade. This is going to be more rookie oriented. But the 49ers went into this NFL draft saying our run defense was abominable in 2024. We need to figure out a way to get this run defense better. So what do? They cut Javon Hargrave, who actually, this is the biggest myth that he was terrible for the 49ers. He was actually a solid player, had a good 2023. Wasn't great. He was good, and then he got hurt after a 6-pressure game in week 3 of 2024. So we didn't see any more of Javon Hargrave after that. The problem is that Hargrave was a pass rusher first, run defender second, and the 49ers didn't have a good run defender next to Javon Hargrave. Even Javon Kinlaw developed into more of a pass rusher than a run defender. So the 49ers run defense really, really faltered. So they said, we need to get the run defense better, because if the run defense is bad, then teams are just going to run on us and we won't even have a chance to rush the passer. Okay, all good. They cut Javon Hargrave because they say we need to rebuild this thing from the ground up. Same idea with Leonard Floyd. The guy damn near hit 10 sacks, but again, he's light. I mean, Leonard Floyd might have, I don't want to say he was in the 230s, but he's definitely in the 240s. It was tough to play the run effectively. He had some wiry strength, and I think Leonard's a good football player. He's survived around this league for a long time. He's been a productive guy for a long time, but he wasn't furthering the 49ers' progress toward what had to be their fundamental goal, and that was stopping the run. So they cut Leonard Floyd. Another guy that they cut was Malik Collins. Good pass rushing defensive tackle, but this team was prioritizing run defense. That's what I was trying to tell everybody in March, and everybody, oh no, the 49ers are being cheap. It's like, guys, take a step back, take a deep breath, maybe calmly analyze what they're doing from a strategic perspective, and you'll understand, because the 49ers have not been cheap. They're back up to the number 3 overall spend in the NFL after the addition of Bryce Huff and his $7.95 million salary this year. The players who have replaced the 3 that I just listed, Malik Collins, Leonard Floyd, and Javon Hargrave, are Mikel Williams, Alfred Collins, another Collins, and CJ West. So you had 3 pass rush-oriented players leave and 3 run defense-oriented rookies arrive for San Francisco. This is not a coincidence. And it's also not a coincidence that after they got these run defense guys in, they added a pass rush specialist who's not going to compete with any of these 3 for playing time at all in Bryce Huff. Huff is going to come in on third downs, and Mikel Williams is going to kick inside. 49ers will probably also see Yetur Gross-Matos kick inside. So it's not a hard formula to decipher. The 49ers have told us what they plan to do in the regard of this defensive line moving forward, and they essentially put the cherry on top of that plan with the addition via trade of Bryce Huff. So anyway, one more look at these 49ers defensive linemen. Consider everything I just said as you watch this. Run defense. That's a run defender right there. I'm pausing it. Look at the biceps and the triceps on CJ West. I mean, this is a guy who Indiana didn't have a very good run defense until he showed up. And people just didn't run up the A gap against Indiana after CJ West took over at that one technique spot this past season, and they turned into a college football playoff team. So CJ came from Kent State, and we know that he prides himself on playing at the one technique. We know that he says that he abuses centers. I mean, if you want to talk about mentality, this guy has the mentality of somebody that just wants to go F everything up. Let's put it that way. I don't want the algorithm to punish me, but sometimes you just want a destroyer on the inside. They call him a war daddy. This could be a war daddy on the inside. We called Dalvin Tomlinson a war daddy. He's a veteran. I think you got to earn that in the NFL. Well, CJ West has the potential to earn that in the NFL with this frame, his mentality, and his history in college. Indiana's run defense really, really scared people last year. Alfred Collins is a different type of defensive tackle. I'm going to pause this again because you could see the frame, but tree trunk legs on Alfred Collins. The most I could do right now is analyze how the guy looks because he hasn't yet practiced for the 49ers. But we've talked to Bobby Burton about Alfred Collins. We've talked about, his instincts. He bats down a lot of passes. I think he had 1 fewer pass breakup last year for Texas than their Jim Thorpe Award winning cornerback, Jahdae Barron, who's now in the NFL as a premium pick. Alfred Collins had 6 pass breakups last year, and you could see why it's possible with the frame. I mean, that's a long frame. He's 6'5", 6'6", 7-foot wingspan, but instinctively, he can also defend the pass really well, and that's all over the tape at Texas for Alfred Collins. In fact, the first interception that he delivered in college, he tipped the ball to himself. It was a tremendously aware play. And you don't often say that about defensive linemen, especially guys at the college level who are just used to overpowering offensive linemen. And, they could build good stats at college and it'll be fine. But to succeed at the NFL level where everyone is a really good player, you got to bring a little bit more to the table in terms of that spatial awareness. And the 49ers really believe that Alfred Collins is going to be able to do that. Now, with the length, they think they could combine this length with this stoutness. So this guy's 6 foot 6'1", this guy's 6'5" with a 7-foot wingspan. On run downs, if you could have both of them working on the inside, then this creates a hell of a Batman and Robin combination, right? You got this and this. One guy, blockers have a really, really tough time even engaging him because his arms are so long. The other guy, they have a really tough time getting under him because he's got that low center of gravity and tremendous strength. So both of these players are at the root of the 49ers' long-term plans in terms of run defense on the inside. And then, of course, one more time, Mikel Williams. This is him working with Chris Kasarik. And you could see long arms again, Mikel Williams. Now, he's lighter. He's going to be a little bit bouncier. He's looked the part. I mean, the first rookie minicamp practice, we saw Mikel Williams absolutely steamroll a staffer inadvertently. He was just working on a drill, and the staffer flies backwards. The clip goes viral, and it was funny to see. Nobody got hurt. And it's not that illustrative of anything. Of course, Mikel Williams is going to be stronger than a staffer who's out there helping coach him up on the field. But I think it opened people's eyes when they said, okay, Mikel Williams, you appreciated the physical measurables at that moment when he did take the field and just bowl that guy over. Because I think, we can compare him here to Aiden Hutchinson. We don't have nearly as many metrics for Mikel Williams from the testing perspective, but we do have a lot of the length metrics for him, and the relative athletic score does take those into account. So here it is for Mikel. Aiden Hutchinson had a nearly perfect relative athletic score. Mikel is a little bit shorter at 6'5", and about the same weight as 260. And we actually do have some of the speed measurements, but what I'm looking at here is the arm length, 34.38 inches. Aiden Hutchinson, who aces this test, right? 9.90 is awesome. And we know he's a great player at the NFL level. His arm length is 32.1. It's not great. Mikel Williams has elite offensive tackle arm length at 34.38 inches. And the 49ers believe that gives him a lot of potential upside as a pass rusher on the outside, because the tackles also have long arms. But they're not really worried about that in the short term. They want Mikel Williams to take this prodigious arm length and work against guards. So we talk about arm length, right? And let me step back and let me explain strategy here a little bit. So we talk so much about these prospects coming out at the offensive line, and we always ask, well, how long are his arms? And somebody will say, oh, they're 34 inches. And we'll say, okay, he could be a tackle at the NFL level. But then you have somebody who's a good offensive lineman in college, and you ask, how long are his arms? And they say 32 inches. And it's like, oh, he's going to have to move inside and play guard at the NFL level. Why is that? Well, because as a tackle, you're on the exterior of the line. You're dealing with way more space. And that reach is going to be so important to force edge rushers to run a wider hoop around you, right? So if the edge rusher is coming off of a wide 9 already, so he's already far out there, and he's trying to sprint around you, beat you with a speed move. If you've got longer arms as an offensive tackle, you can keep him at bay. You can force his route to the quarterback to be less efficient. And if you do that, then 1/10 of a second is a huge difference in this league. That's why college quarterbacks and NFL quarterbacks, it's hard to project who's going to be making that jump all too effectively, because the difference between two levels is so nuanced. So anyway, that's how we delineate these offensive tackles, right? We delineate them by arm length. So by logical extension, defensive ends and just defensive linemen in general with longer arms are going to be able to better combat the type of offensive tackle that we see in the NFL. So if Mikel Williams has got an arm length of over 34 inches, theoretically, he should be able to win mano-a-mano battles against long-armed offensive tackles. Beyond that, since offensive guards typically have shorter arms than tackles, the 49ers plan pass rushing, and now we see it. Now we see the totality of it with Bryce Huff aboard. That could bode very well for Mikel Williams because he's going to be working on the inside against offensive guards. So I talk about the Lightning package. It's the same thing as the NASCAR package. It's a light defensive end speed rushing package. Bryce Huff is going to be on one end. Nick Bosa is going to be on the other end. This is third down against the pass. Yetur Gross-Matos and Mikel Williams are going to be working against the inside. And when I look at Mikel at practice and I see the bounciness and I see the long arms and I've already seen, it looks like he's, we want to talk about mentality. Nick Bosa seems to be in the same position of imparting knowledge that Mikel Williams is soaking up like a sponge as Fred Warner is for Nick Martin. And I played you the clip of Fred Warner. We haven't had a chance to talk to Nick Bosa yet, but we have heard from John Lynch. We have heard from Mikel Williams. I mean, Mikel was talking to Kay Adams. Mike, if you have that clip, why don't we play that? Mikel Williams talking about just learning from Bosa. And the attitude, again, one of the first things that you have to look at, especially just a month in, as these guys are getting their feet wet and acclimated at the NFL level, you have to look at how they absorb information. You can't have guys who are prima donnas walking in thinking they know everything, and then they get shown up in week one. It needs to be a crash course because it is a significant step up in the level of competition. So we've seen some beautiful clips in slow-mo of Nick Bosa working his cross chop with his hands, and he's just so good with the technical aspect of things. And I think that's Mikel showed some promise there at Georgia, but that's where he really has meat on the bone still to develop. And the fact that he's talking about angles, that he's talking about hand placement, that he's talking about technique with Nick Bosa, I think might be more valuable. And this is no disrespect to Georgia's coaching staff, because we know they coach him up really well at Georgia. But what Mikel Williams has been able to do over the past month with Nick Bosa in the building, just significant in and of itself, probably has been more revelatory for him than several years of college coaching. Because you're learning from Bosa, who is one of the best in the game. You're learning from Fred Warner, a future Hall of Famer, if you're Nick Martin. I mean, all this stuff is really, really significant. And I think that we've gotten very positive indications from the 49ers rookies and from their veterans, in the case of Warner, that the transfer of knowledge, the pass down of knowledge, is going well so far. All right, so there are 17 rookies that we need to talk about. To give you a visual illustration, I know we've talked about, 4 or 5 of them already, but we've got to go through all 17. And to give you a visual illustration, you can see the depth chart here. The green shading means rookie. So you can see which ones I project to make the 53-man roster and which ones I don't project to make the 53-man roster. Although remember, there is still the practice squad for the 49ers, and they can keep guys in the building via the practice squad. So we have a lot of material to work with because we've seen so many of these guys on the field already. Some guys we haven't seen on the field yet. I'm going to go through this in probably an offense to defense order. We can start with Jordan James. Jordan was part of my reel the other day. You guys got a quick little look at the highlights from practice, and he was just working, taking some handoffs with the running backs. Jordan James at the University of Oregon was about as reliable of a runner as could be. You had, and it's funny because he wasn't winning any explosiveness contests. And it was a very, very particular window in which he succeeded, and it was between 10 and 20 yards downfield. He was one of the most productive runners in the nation on runs between 10 and 20 yards. Then he only had 3 runs his entire final season with the Ducks go for over 20 yards. And you're like, how the heck does that work? And it works well when you see, and this is something you almost come to expect from Jordan James, when you see his score. It's red. I mean, there's not a lot of impressive stuff on here. He's a little short compared to your prototypical running back, although I don't think it matters as much at the position at 5'9". He does have a stocky build, though, 5'9", 205. He's decently strong with 20 reps, but the vertical jump wasn't very good. The 40-yard dash was rather pedestrian at 4.55 for an NFL running back, and the 10-yard split is downright concerning at 1.63 for a back where that short area explosion is going to be so important. But here's one thing that I've noticed about Jordan James so far watching him through 2 practices. I saw him at the rookie mini camp, and then I saw him again on Thursday. He does have more bounce and more burst in person than he does on tape. And the statistical tale of the tape tells you that the guy obviously has burst. He played big-time college football. And again, he was one of the national leaders on runs between 10 and 20 yards. This might seem like blasphemy, and I'm not saying that he is the guy with the jersey right behind me, Frank Gore. But Frank Gore was one of the people in the room who endorsed the 49ers picking Jordan James. And I think that Frank Gore sees some of himself in Jordan James. Frank was never the fastest guy, especially after he tore 2 ACLs. Frank was never the most explosive guy. Frank would never light up the stat sheet, even at the University of Miami, for runs over 20 yards. But Frank is one of the most reliable running backs in NFL history. He had 16 seasons and exactly 16,000 yards. He just knew how to run the football. And I think that that's what the 49ers have seen from both Jordan James and Corey Kiner. Now, there's reliability at the college level, and then there's the ability to translate that at the NFL level. Sometimes there's just physical realities that a player has to conquer, right? If he's not explosive enough, it doesn't matter how reliable he is, because NFL guys are going to just completely swallow him up. And that's where I go back to my one observation regarding Jordan James so far. I do think that his explosiveness, his burst in person was more impressive than what I saw on tape at Oregon. It looked like he belonged. Like the running backs move in a line, right? You see Christian McCaffrey go first. He looks explosive as hell because he's fully healthy now. Isaac Guerrero, we all know how fast he is. Jordan James lines up, and it's not like, oh my God, that guy is slow. For running backs, the biggest evaluation is going to come in the preseason, because the pads are going to be on and there's going to be live contact. They could actually tackle to the ground. I think Jordan James and Corey Kiner, who has a similar profile as Jordan, for both of those guys, the preseason is going to be very, very indicative of what we might see from a running level at the NFL regular season level. It was the same way for Matt Breida, Jeff Wilson Jr., and Jordan James was a higher draft pick, right? He was a 5th rounder, but Corey Kiner was an undrafted free agent. Both of these backs, their chance to shine, and Jordan Mason, same way for him as well, right? Their real chance to shine is going to be in the preseason. So I am very, very much looking forward to that. All right, let's go back to the roster. Where are we at? We moved to the running backs. We're going down. Oh, that next one is good. This next one is good. We're moving to the receiver room. We are moving to Jordan Watkins. This is probably the rookie, I would say, that jumped out most to me at Thursday's practice. And it's a combination of opportunity and readiness, to be honest. Like, there are other rookies in the receiving room who have, and even second-year guys who didn't pop off the screen or pop off my vision, because I wasn't watching through a screen, the way that Jordan Watkins did. And we've got a quick little clip here from the 49ers that will just give you an idea of what the body type is for Jordan Watkins. Mike was able to send this to me. This is a Brock Purdy throw in slow motion. It's going to take a while to get there, but there's Jordan Watkins making the catch, wearing the number 17. Now he's 5'11", so he's not a tall receiver, but he is, I think, physically built enough at this point to see him not drowning in legitimate NFL playing time. That's not saying he's going to get early, big-time playing time for the 49ers, but I think that Jordan Watkins is at a point right now physically where the 49ers can be very excited about his potential integration into the run blocking game, which is so important for this team. Now, what we got to see more of performance-wise, because he's not going to be blocking a whole lot of guys without pads. Most of the time, the 49ers didn't even have their helmets on at this practice, but it's the movement, it's the route running, right? It's the hands. We heard how impressed the 49ers were with Jordan Watkins during the gauntlet drill at the NFL Combine. And that's one of the newer drills. And Kyle Shanahan thought that he was the best receiver in that regard. And it's going to combine movement and, how much of a vacuum are you? Can you suck in that pass and can you do it with regularity? I mean, it's bang, bang, bang in the gauntlet drill. And the 49ers were impressed with that. And I was impressed with him. He made several catches and he was moving fluidly. And to me, we're not in the meeting rooms, right? But if a guy is moving confidently on the field at his first 11-on-11 practice with the team, that means that he must have a decent command of the playbook, because everybody out on an NFL field is a good athlete. Like, right? I mean, these guys would all be champions of your local gym. It's not like anybody out there is, relative to the normal human at least, is tremendously lacking in athleticism. This is the NFL. So the way that you truly stand out is with how much quicker, can you be a 10th of a second quicker on this? Can you be a 10th of a second quicker on a cut? Can you be more violent on a certain cut? Can you pluck the ball out of the air with purpose? It's all these little things that separate all the great athletes that we see in an NFL building. And the only way that you can deliver on small little things with regularity, and I think I saw it from Jordan Watkins on Thursday, is if you have a decent idea of what you're doing. So many times these NFL youngsters, especially at receiver, where it's so much more complicated, are just flooded with so much new information. And Kyle Shanahan actually talked about it the other day. He said that at the college level, these receivers will look over to the sideline and there's an assistant coach that shows a flash card and it's like, okay, that's the route that I'm running. And then the assistant coach on the next play will let him know, okay, well, we're running the ball in the other direction so you can take this play off. So the guy just stands around. The receiver's just like, okay, easy play. That's stuff that doesn't happen in an NFL. You got to be head in the game every single snap as a wideout. The ball, you're not getting tips from the sideline. You're going to get the call in the huddle, and you better be ready for all the variations that may come out of that. You're not going to be destroying some cornerback who's, going to be a plumber in 3 years with your route running. It's not happening at the NFL. You're facing off against guys who at times are making $20 million a year on the other side. So it's one of those things where you have to be on every P and Q at the NFL level, or you're going to look slow, even if you aren't. And the fact that Jordan Watkins looked smooth at that first practice for the 49ers, and he caught a lot of passes, I think is a tremendous arrow up for him. Now, I will say that opportunity was also a big part of this, and I'm going to zoom in on the 49ers depth chart here. There's Watkins. Brandon Ayuk is not available. Demarcus Robinson was there, and he was playing. Juwan Jennings was dominant. Ricky Pearsall, though, is currently hurt. We can put Ricky Pearsall in injury shading. Now, he's not seriously hurt. He should be healthy by next week or the week after that, but he wasn't practicing, right? So we saw both Watkins and Cowing deliver some nice catches for the 49ers. Jacob Cowing is in his second season. The other two rookies are Isaiah Nair and Junior Bergen. Now, Bergen, the 49ers have been very upfront about this, that it's very much more likely that if he makes the 53-man roster, it is going to be as a punt returner. It's not going to be as a wide receiver. He's a shorter player, but he's a good football player. And who knows? You should never say never, because if he does make the team on special teams, that could always translate into something greater for somebody like Isaiah Nair, but for somebody like Junior Bergen. But in the case of Isaiah Nair, if he makes the team, if he impresses the 49ers from a playbook standpoint, well, he's the ceiling is extremely, extremely high for him. Every single time I put up the athletic score for Isaiah Nair, I'm wowed. And he's got some college tape to back it up. Now, we've seen Isaiah Nair. He got a lot more spotlight at the rookie minicamp. He made a couple nice catches there. He definitely wasn't as high up on the pecking order as Jordan Watkins, as you'd expect at the first OTA. Jordan Watkins, a higher draft pick. Isaiah Nair was an undrafted free agent for the 49ers. But if this, if the 49ers can find a way to capture any of this potential, I mean, the guy is, we talk about arm length. Look at that. 34.3 inches, 6'4" height, 218, runs like the wind, 4'4". Just so happens that T.O.'s son is in his position room. And I think that we had some of the same descriptors for Terrell Owens as an athlete. If Isaiah Nair can harness any of that, and I think it's probably going to be a bit of a project. He's more of a raw prospect at receiver. But if any of that comes to fruition, 49ers have a weapon at that receiver room. All right, we're moving on. Connor Colby. I stand by my prediction. I think that Connor is going to start at some point this year. Now, it might take an injury for that to happen, and I never want to predict injuries, so I'm going to tiptoe around this carefully. The 49ers are obviously set on the right side with Dominic Pooney and Colton McKivitz. They're obviously set at left tackle with Trent Williams. Ben Barch is the early leader in the clubhouse to start at left guard. And if he plays as well as he did over his game plus last year before the high ankle sprain, he'll start all year, barring an injury. But Connor Colby, to me, given his background at the University of Iowa, the fact that they teach 49ers style run concepts at Iowa. So the fact that he turned into a mauler in a college system that replicates a lot of what the NFL has to do. We saw George Kittle immediately succeed when he came to the 49ers. That gives Colby a really, really good chance to be an instant contributor for the 49ers. And to me, that's really notable because he was a 7th-round pick. Now, when I asked the 49ers personnel executives about this, were they surprised that he was still available in the 7th round? They said yes, but also this was a very, very deep draft. And because the draft was so deep, it pushed guys like Colby down. Now, Colby and Drew Moss, I think there's a lot of similarities between both of these players. Both of them are better run blockers than pass protectors, but both of them are excellent athletes. This is Drew Moss, the undrafted free agent offensive lineman out of Colorado State. And trust me, I've seen both Colby and Moss move in person now in the practice field. They both move very well. It matches what we see here. Moss, great explosion, great speed. Anytime you could see a guard with a 40 at 5 seconds or lower would be insane, but right around 5 flat, that is epically good. A 1.70 10-yard split for a guy who weighs over 300 pounds is also wildly good. So Moss is a really good run blocker for obvious reasons. You see the athletic score here. Now look at Colby's. Look how similar Connor Colby's relative athletic score is. A little bit heavier than Drew Moss, but you've got the dark green in the speed category. You've got a lot of good stuff in the explosive category, and the agility is solid as well. In fact, one could argue that Drew Moss has a better relative athletic score, because the size is obviously worse, but everything else here like forms an L, like a backwards L is in the green for Moss. For Connor Colby, he's got a little bit more size, a little worse on some of the agility scores, but you could see where the 49ers are going with this strategically. Both of these rookie offensive linemen are very good movers with good straight line speed, great agility. They both are a little lacking in the size department, but both of them, they believe they can develop the pass protection skills necessary to crack into the lineup. Last year, Dominic Pooney was able to start from day one for the 49ers. That's been a great story at right guard. We'll see what happens elsewhere in this 49ers O-line room. All right, we've gone through the entire offense. We're now moving on to the defense. We've already done the defensive lineman. We've already done Nick Martin. Upton Stout, Marquise Siegel, Jacob Robinson, Derek Canteen, and Stone Blanton. And then why don't we talk about Sebastian Valdez too? Valdez is an undrafted free agent defensive tackle. I know that he's going to fly more under the radar than the 3 drafted guys in the top 5. Valdez is a little undersized, but very athletic. And, just looking at the defensive line in general, if anybody from that defensive tackle position can show good pass rushing, that to me is like the one spot on the D line where the 49ers still have a little bit of a hole. Because as I said earlier, they jettisoned 3 veterans who were better pass rushers than run defenders up front. So yes, they had to take care of the run defense first, and they have with their acquisitions. Now they've added Bryce Huff to add a pass rusher on the exterior. But the one thing the 49ers don't have on the inside, since there's no more Javon Hargrave, no more Malik Collins on this team, is a bona fide interior pass rusher at defensive tackle. Now they plan to manufacture this, and I don't think it's a terrible plan. I've already talked about Mikel Williams moving inside on those third downs when you really need pass rushing. Yetur Gross-Matos moves inside. But if you want this to be a truly complete defensive line, you're going to want a defensive tackle who can deliver on rundowns but can also rush the passer. And, I mean, those are normally superstars. Those guys are hard to come by, right? Javon Hargrave can only really do one at a highly effective level. Hargrave was more of a pass rusher and not a run defender. Somebody like Sebastian Valdez is intriguing because of the athleticism that he brings to the table. And we'll see how the 49ers can develop him at an NFL level. But in general, all 49ers offensive linemen, defensive linemen, I can tell you what the metrics look like. I can tell you what the college tape looks like. I can tell you what the strategic vision for these players looks like. But until they put on pads at training camp, it's going to be really, really hard to evaluate. George Kittle the other day said, run blocking without pads on doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And I agree with him. It's really, really hard to gauge. Pass protecting without pads is really tough because these guys can't protect themselves against the defensive linemen coming in. So they didn't have their helmets on for most of this session the other day. A lot of this stuff is going to be a future-facing projection. I can tell you how players are moving, and I can tell you how they look physically in person. And that's the extent of my scouting report. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you that I saw more than actually happened. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you about how Christian McCaffrey looked at practice. We're going to keep things truthful. That's why we're the most successful 49ers YouTube channel out there. Okay, so we went to Nick Martin. Now we go to Stone Blanton. Blanton, he tackling machine. Now, he's doing really well because he just got married. Congratulations to Stone Blanton. Stone Blanton, he linebacker, like I said, tackling machine out of Mississippi State. He missed the 49ers rookie mini camp because he was getting married that weekend. You schedule weddings typically far before you get drafted and learn that you have to report to a rookie mini camp. There's only 2 weeks between those two things. I'm sure that he scheduled his wedding way more than 2 weeks in advance. So he wasn't at rookie mini camp. Stone Blanton was on the field. And when I'm looking at this 49ers linebackers room, to me, it was astounding to see how many new numbers and names there were. The old guard is Fred Warner and D. Winters. I know Tatum Bethune was on the team last year, but he was just a rookie cutting his teeth, not exactly an established guy. I know Curtis Robinson and Jalen Graham have been around, but you look through the room, you've got Nick Martin wearing the 45. You got Chaz Surratt out there. You got Luke Gifford wearing the 57. That's Jerry Greenlaw's old jersey. And then you got Stone Blanton wearing the 50. When there are so many new players, there will be opportunity to at least make the practice squad. I've had people email me about Stone Blanton. I think it's because SEC fans, it just means more to them, and they really appreciated the tackling machine that he was at Mississippi State. He was a turnover machine too. The guy with 4 fumbles, like his tape is impressive. He's going to have a chance to do a lot of that stuff for the 49ers over the course of training camp and the preseason. Then there are the DBs, and I've done a lot of intel on this DB room. Starting with Upton Stout, I literally went to Western Kentucky. That was a lot of fun, where we talked to Tyson Helton at Western Kentucky. We could tease that video here in a little bit. The article is now up on the San Francisco Standard as well. Upton is Upton. He's not a tall player, but he's a dog. And I have him projected to win the nickelback role. Does he win it? Does Trey Brown win it? TBD. I don't think we know yet, because we've got to, again, with somebody like Upton Stout, who is a dog, the determined athlete with grit, by the way. Jim Harbaugh had his own acronym for dog. Jim Harbaugh tried to recruit Upton Stout to Michigan. So Upton Stout is a player whom both of the 49ers' most successful coaches of this century have coveted. Jim Harbaugh wanted him to transfer from Western Kentucky. Kyle Shanahan obviously wanted him as a draftee, and he got him as a draftee. So if both Harbaugh and Shanahan and the 49ers personnel department want you, that's a good sign. I think he moves well. We saw him on some of those special teams drills with Tariq Owens the other day. To be honest, like I can't really do Upton Stout justice until he has a chance to start hitting people. Because when we talk about a guy being a dog, when we talk about that guy being 5'8", 181 pounds, the way that he's made his money is that he has played larger than his size. And it's really, really hard to show that you can play larger than your size until you can actually start hitting people. So for that reason, I see Upton Stout and I know the stories about him, and they're all, great. They're all complimentary, but I don't think that we're going to really be able to appreciate Upton Stout until training camp and some of this time comes to be. Western Kentucky sent me so much cool B-roll that we used for our Upton Stout video, which I thought was really neat. Some of the stuff came from Western Kentucky's Pro Day, and I'll play some of it here in a little bit, but why don't we finish looking at the rest of the 49ers defensive backs? Because Marquise Siegel, he's going to be out till training camp. They haven't specified his injury. That to me is the more disappointing 49ers injury, because there are openings right now at safety. It's probably the biggest concern in terms of injuries along the 49ers roster as we speak, because neither injury for Jair Brown nor Malik Mustafa is a short-term injury. Malik is a torn ACL. Jair Brown had an ankle procedure. Malik is probably going to miss the start of the season. Maybe not, but probably. Jair Brown will be back at training camp, but we're not seeing either of these guys over the course of the spring. So that has meant that the 49ers' 2 rookie safeties, Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock, the 2 veteran free agent safeties, sorry. The 2 veteran free agent safety additions, Richie Grant and Jason Pinnock, are getting first-team reps. It also means that had Marquise Siegel been healthy and available, the 5th-round pick out of Kansas State would have had a chance to show out at this time. But he is not available, and we're just going to have to wonder what if at this point with Marquise Siegel. Other 2 rookies are Jacob Robinson and Derek Canteen. I saw Robinson the other day. I think he needs to add a little bit of muscle. I think he moves well. corner out of BYU. He's there working with the 49ers DBs. But despite how well he moves, I think that you look at somebody like Renardo Green, who's filled out a year in year 2 here for the 49ers. You look at somebody like Upton Stout. That's a player that is notably wide, somebody that you could trust to take on NFL level contact. When you see both of those guys and their body types, you say, okay, Jacob Robinson is probably going to have to add a little bit more weight to be legitimate for the 49ers as an option in that defensive backfield. But you get him in that NFL weight room, and I think good things can happen for Jacob Robinson. They liked his cover skills at BYU. So there it is. I've gone through every single 49ers rookie. I don't think you're getting coverage this in-depth anywhere. And I'm a little sick. So I'm expending a lot of energy talking about every single 49ers rookie. 17. It's a big class this year. And, we can go back to this. I predict that at this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them make the 49ers 53-man roster. Maybe even 10 of them make it. Maybe 11 make it. They had 11 draftees. So it's going to be interesting. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Do you have any good questions? What does Bryce Huff do contract-wise? He's got 2 years. 49ers have 2 years of team control. $7.95 million guaranteed for this year. The Eagles are paying $9 million, and the 49ers are paying $7.95 million guaranteed. So, with Bryce Huff, the ceiling is that he is the 10-sack guy that Robert Saleh last coached in 2023. And that would be tremendous value for the 49ers at about $8 million. The floor is he's not productive at all, but the 49ers in that case would only owe $8 million to an unproductive player instead of the Eagles, who owed $25 million for an unproductive player. So the 49ers swung big here. This is a lot of upside for Bryce Huff with, the downside isn't tragic. It'd be a little bump in the road. Fine. $8 million. He didn't work out. You cut him after this season. But the upside, a guy that led the league in pressure rate in 2023, if you could get that guy for $8 million, you're really happy. So many people love to suck up to the Eagles and Howie Roseman. It was Howie Roseman who signed Bryce Huff to a deal that still had $17 million of guaranteed money this year and put the Eagles in a bind. So they obviously misevaluated his fit with the football team. They gave him a contract worth up to $51 million, which is why I laugh when people say, oh, well, Howie Roseman's trading him away. There must be something wrong with him. Howie Roseman is the one who signed him. So Howie Roseman, his decision-making in this matter has definitely not been perfect. It's a simple situation, in my opinion. The NFL is a situational sport. Some guys do better in some situations than others. In fact, I would even say that all guys do better in some situations than others. And unfortunately for the Eagles, Bryce Huff didn't match that situation, especially after they hired Vic Fangio. He likes to get both hands down in the dirt, 4-point stance, and rush. Anyway, that video's out this morning. It's only 13 minutes long. Why don't you just go right now, watch that video on Bryce Huff. I think I break down the trade dynamics very, very concisely. It's required viewing. Go do it right now. In fact, you got to do 2 things. Here's your homework. Hit the like button and go watch the Bryce Huff video, 13 minutes long from this morning. All right, I'm sick. I've expended way too much energy. We'll talk to you guys soon.